I want to tell you a story about how I accidentally changed my life. I never intended to quit drinking. I was a craft beer guy. I started my love for craft beer with a slight obsession with Sam Callione, the founder of Dogfish Head. I worked in bars and restaurants for years, and one of my last jobs in the industry was at a brewery and a church where I spent time learning about brewing beer. If you would have told me then that I was going to become a sobriety influencer, I would have laughed, and there is no way I would have believed you.
This is the same spot that I was sitting in a year ago when I announced to people on Instagram that I was not going to drink any alcohol for a year.
Yet, life happens, and if we are open to it, we can evolve. This change did not happen overnight. Sometimes it seems like one failed attempt to jog around the block
I'm gonna die.
very quickly turned into me being a completely different person. The truth is, it took me years to make running a habit and to start taking my health seriously. This is not a running story. This is a story about the long road ahead of you if you want to better yourself. Today marks the 700th day of my run streak. If you're not familiar with run streaks, here are the rules. You have to run every day for at least 1 mile. Some people do more and have different rules, but if you want to be considered an official run streaker that is recognized by Run Streak International, those are the rules. The only additional rule I have for myself is that I must run the mile outside without exception.
My mouth is frozen.
It is. I see you with a Boston Marathon jacket on. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, well, I run 4 Bostons.
Okay.
I just ran in October and I'm training now for this April.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is I'm just so grateful to be here.
Yeah.
I qualified for Boston when I had breast cancer. I'm cured. I kept running. And I'm just so grateful to be able to run.
That's amazing.
Even though it's hard today in the snow.
Yeah. I hear people say a lot that you should say, I get to run instead of I have to run.
Exactly.
That's so amazing. Cooper, right?
Cooper, and I'm so thrilled to have so many wonderful people in my life. People like you that even stop and say, you're going well.
That's so amazing. If you could say anything to someone that's like struggling to start running or to like get going, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
The one piece of advice is never ever give up and know that you can do it. You
That's
might
amazing.
amaze yourself.
That's amazing. Thank you.
When I started my run streak, I was still drinking. I had no plans of quitting. At this point, I had taken several breaks from alcohol, and my most recent break was about 6 months before I started my run streak. I was training for my first marathon. It was 2020, and the race I had signed up for was canceled. So a group of my friends and I decided to run our own marathon on a loop trail in the woods. We ran 6 4.3 mile loops and finished the last half mile on a road in front of the trail. This decision to run our own marathon was pretty spontaneous. I had never run more than 10 miles, and I only gave myself 8 weeks to train. I knew this was rather short notice for marathon training, let alone a marathon on a fairly difficult course in the woods.
You might want to back out. You're going to get splashed a little bit.
Let's hope it doesn't break.
You good on the log? Oh. Okay. That worked.
As a testament to how ill-prepared and organized we were, the day we showed up to run at the state park, it was actually closed for deer hunting.
Yeah, what do you do?
I just was sharing with you because I thought it was funny. Park closed for deer hunt on the gate. No shit. We pulled up to the park station because it says 6 and it says 6 p.m. at the gate, and they're like, only can come back here if you're hunting. And I was like, well, what if we run? They're like, you'll get shot. Are you already driving over here? Obviously. All right.
So what just happened?
Just life, just kicking you in the dick sometimes. What are you gonna do? I guess I could have looked into it, but don't let anything stop you or some motivational thing here, right?
So we'll figure out next time.
Yeah, figure it out. Pivot and move. Life is like business and all that stuff, right? Know where you're going and don't let anything stop you or something.
Insert motivational quote.
I was frustrated that night because I wanted to have a celebratory cocktail. After I decided to run the marathon, I also decided to cut out alcohol, at least for training. 4 days later, we went back out to the park, and this time it was open. We finished the marathon, my son ran the last half mile with us. Everyone was proud of me, and I felt like I was setting a good example for my kids.
Hey, I love you. Thank you.
I love you too.
I love you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you.
I love you too.
That night, I had celebratory cocktails, then the next night, and the night after. It was the weekend after all. Looking back, it's honestly kind of funny to me that I celebrated my body being amazing by putting poison into it. Fast forward 8 months from the time I finished my first marathon to the day I started my running streak. When I set out to run a mile a day, I hadn't run more than a couple of times since that marathon. I was still struggling to build a healthy lifestyle. I would overthink which race I should sign up for, which plan to use, and this kind of overthinking led to inaction. So I set out on what has turned out to be a wild journey.
I've ran outside every day without missing a day for 393 days in a row. And tomorrow, I'm gonna run my first ultra marathon.
I'm a sensitive person with a wild imagination. I can think of an idea, then imagine the idea working beyond my wildest dreams, and I can picture how inspired my kids, my friends, and the people around me will be to see me achieve something great. I can picture this in such vivid detail that it will bring me to tears. I do this with everything I do. I just did it while writing the script, imagining comments I'll get on the video, even though I know running videos I make typically don't do well. The point is, I romanticize everything, even drinking. When I look back on my drinking, and even when I think about what it would be like to have a drink or two, I start to picture myself as a beatnik writer, a Bukowski, a Hunter Thompson, and Ernest Hemingway. I do the same with running. Even when I was running 13-minute miles during my first marathon, I couldn't help but romanticize what it would be like to have running shoes sent to my door and to be on popular lifestyle podcasts telling my story about how I went from zero to hero. To be honest, that romanticized version of myself still hasn't left. But what started to change was the realization that you can't achieve every version of yourself you want. You can't be an alcoholic rider who can't quit drinking because they find their muse at the bottom of the bottle while also winning local running events. Running the way I've started to run is very demanding on my body. It was over 100 days into the run streak before I stopped being so stubborn.
28 minutes in, day 85. Look who's with me. How you doing?
I realized that running hungover every weekend was having a negative effect on my running performance. I still had this romanticized version of myself as a creative alcoholic who drew inspiration from late night's buzz, staring at the stars and pontificating on the meaning of life. It took me a long time before I realized that these two people could not exist inside of me at the same time. So I had to choose one or the other.